Dan, just looking ahead then to, I suppose, what's been built up now what's going to be a real Titanic battle, and what we all hope will be, if both the horses arrive there safely. That's the champion chase, the Queen Mother champion chase on Wednesday. Um, you tipped the winner last year and put the kettle on. That was a brilliant performance by Aidan Coleman. Just looking to this year, I mean, we saw a little glimpse of it a couple of weeks ago at Ascot, but Shishin and Energumene, it really could be something special, and it could be the real kick in the festival, if you like, the one that really gets the crowd going, and we saw the crowd roar home Shishkin the last day. Could we see a real battle again up the hill at Cheltenham?
Yeah, and just on Wednesday, I think Wednesday is now going to be the most exciting day, given the Ballymore, and then you have the Festival Novices Chase, which Galloping de Champs, and it's actually a quite deep field there, which we'll get into next week. And then you have obviously this Champion Chase battle, and then you have Tiger Earl potentially winning another cross country, and Gordon Elliott tweeted out that he's looking well. So yeah, on that, this is like the pinnacle of Wednesday, which I think this year in particular is the best day. And yeah, it's rare we get a battle between an Irish horse and an English horse going into a championship race before Cheltenham, which is huge, and it was a massive thing for the sport, and we spoke about it on the podcast, and it was brilliant to see. But the best thing about the battle, like we mentioned, is there's already a rematch in place in March, and while Shishkin won it in the end, there's still enough there that you could say, well, maybe an Energumene could upset it with different racing tactics. It will be fascinating how they do it. Like, I don't think they'll change too much, because you can get down the road of trying to beat one horse and you end up just beating none, or you don't get the best out of your horse. So I think for Paul Townend and Woody Mullins, they'll be wanting to ride an Energumene similar enough, maybe kick on a little bit sooner. But again, like how often do you see, particularly these days in Cheltenham, that a horse kicks on from 2 out and manages to get home? So you've got to save a bit for that hill as well. So it's fascinating. Again, we spoke about this last week. So Energumene's priced at 3-1. Shishkin's odds on. Like, it's not the worst price in the world for a Woody Mullins horse, but I'm firmly in the Shishkin camp in terms of I think he will win, and I do think the prices are probably about right. I wouldn't have it any bigger for Energumene, but at the same time, I think it's probably about right. So, and realistically, it is probably between those two horses. Again, another fascinating thing that we all know to the Dublin Racing Festival is Chacun Pour Soi and whether he'll get declared this weekend, similar to Appreciated. So Chacun had a setback, which means he didn't run over Christmas. He's the one horse, while I accept that he massively underperformed, and I was dead against him because he was odds on in last year's Champion Chase, and they all finished in a heap, which kind of always indicates that it wasn't the best race in the world, because it's very rare that you'll get 5 or 6 horses that are running really well. The times back that up. But if you make the argument that Chacun underperformed there a small bit, Leopardstown is his track. I can see him, if he is declared at Leopardstown over the weekend, winning. It'll shorten up a small bit for the Champion Chase. So I can see him maybe on the day being a 6-7-1 shot if he wants to take a no runner, no bet approach on that at around the 12-1 mark. It wouldn't be the worst each way bet in the world, because he is the only other horse, I think, in this race that could or has the potential to maybe be with Shishkin or Energumene. But in saying all that, you look at last year's performance, and it's so hard to get out of your head the way he kind of didn't get up the hill. He was in such a good position on the inside as they turned for home. He had the run of the race, and for whatever reason, Paul Townend was as shocked as anyone he didn't get home. So it is a match, and I don't spend too long talking about an outsider here, but it is maybe an interesting way into the race, because I know a lot of people would like to just watch the race or maybe have a small interest on an outsider. The only other horse is worth talking about is Nubra Negra. Was a fast finishing second in last year's Champion Chase. If ground came up really, really good, I guess he might have a squeaker running into a place. But for me, he's on his best form, on his peak form. He's nowhere near these top two. So I think Chacun's the only other horse. Like as finishing up on the match, it's a fascinating race. As I said, it's all about the tactics here. The fact that there's other horses in the race, it was essentially a match between the two. So what those other horses do in terms of front running could dictate massively how this race is run. But again, as I mentioned last week, I can see it being similar, where Shishkin powers up that hill and wins by maybe a slightly bigger margin than the last day. But he did make that mistake down the back in Ascot. If he makes that mistake at Cheltenham and Energumene gets that 5-6 length lead on him, stranger things. And I could just see at the last Energumene leading Shishkin. And if you have someone like a Chacun Pour Soi, who would ride Chacun Pour Soi, thinking out loud here? Maybe Patrick Mullins would probably ride Chacun Pour Soi. if you have Shacken on a quiet ride from Patrick Mullins, or maybe he makes the run and who knows, and maybe gives an Ergamine lead into the race. So there's fascinating, and the fact that Willie Mullins does have a pacemaker, for want of a better word, in Shacken, it sets up the race so well. But it is a fascinating race of the festival for me at the moment, and I'm in the Shishkin camp, but I think it's priced accordingly. So looking forward to the race.
Well, just being on that, I mean, two things. If Shishkin doesn't win for the English, it could be another long week for them. And two, just on what Daniel was saying, how often have we seen 2-horse races, or you think a title is going to go between two teams and someone comes out of the bloom? I mean, could you make a case for Chacon Poursois? And really, as well, if Shishkin doesn't win, it's going to be a long week again for English horse racing.
Yeah, it'll be an incredibly long week. It could be a long week if they don't win the Supreme Novices Hurdle either. So it could be depending on that. But just like if you go back to the 2020 or 2019 Champion Chase, I think it was when Altior won it, but Duvan had ran in the race the previous year and was sent off 2-5, and Special Tiara won it, and he seriously underperformed. I think he finished 8th, never appeared again until that race the following year. Patrick Mullins was booked to ride him. I think he was 25-1, and coming down to the 4th last or the 3rd last, he was travelling like as if he was rebooking this morning. Looking at this, Patrick Mullins will probably ride Chacon Poursois. It'll be interesting that if he does come into the race, how differently they might learn from last year, but it will be. I just think it'll be strange. It'll all depend on how he gets on at the weekend, and they could run the race at the weekend and they mightn't send him at all, depending on how well he goes. But look, the ball is in Shishkin's court at the moment, but I can seriously, at the moment, I would still have faith in him. I think that the only worry for me is the way that he slightly jumps right, and that Cheltenham is left-handed. Leopardstown, I think at the Dublin Racing Festival, he jumped right seriously bad on a couple of occasions, still won by 8 lengths, wasn't the strongest field. It just, in a race of this calibre, it could be interesting. But at the same time, like he did little wrong and defeated Ascot. And the interesting thing between the Clarence House Chase and the Champion Chase is 188 yards shorter than the Clarence House Chase, and Shishkin really did not get upsides him until basically the last 150 yards. So if the race was ran at a Champion Chase distance, he would have won the race, which I think is interesting. And on slightly better ground at Cheltenham, it could suit him a little bit better, that he might be able to gallop up a little bit. And he is unexposed at Cheltenham as well. Like, we don't know how well he's going to run. We don't know how well he's going to take to the track. Obviously the hill at Leopardstown is steeper than the one at Cheltenham, but it's over a longer distance, so it's not as effective. So I wouldn't really read into that too much. So I think you can make a case for him. I mean, look, it's interesting. You could read into it 10 times over. The one thing that we can't deny is how powerful Shishkin's engine is. I mean, he looked like coming in the turn, I think he was 8.1 in the exchanges, whatever his highest rating was, like, and he looked like that there was a time there that he mightn't get up at all. And the way he could just clear away, it's just amazing. He has serious engine. Unexposure is interesting at the Cheltenham Festival. It can sometimes play to your strengths. As I said to you, if the race was ran at a Champion Chase distance at Ascot, and Ergamine would have won the race. So I don't know. It's interesting. The ball is in Shishkin's court. I don't want to be making a decision on who I think will definitely win the race, but at the moment, if you were to give me a charity bet of €50, I'd sooner have the €50 on an Ergamine at 3-1 than at Shishkin at 4-6. If you were to ask me now to push to make a decision, but it's he's up against it seriously.